Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you really want to live in the body and mind you really want to be living in. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of food and body freedom, as well as find more meaning and more moments of joy in life, you are in the right place. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here and listening. I am your host, Heather Heynen, and today we are going to talk about something I don't think we talk enough about when it comes to aging well, aging powerfully, aging with purpose, and that's that mental and emotional side of aging. So, absolutely, we need nourishing food, we need strength training, we need movement, all those things. But really, at the heart of aging strong is how we see ourselves, really our identity, how we motivate ourselves. I don't like that word, motivate, but you know what I mean when I say it, how we gain willingness to keep engaging in consistent behaviors, how we talk to ourselves when no one else is listening. And today we're going to unpack how your identity, who you believe you are, either pushes you forward or holds you back. We're going to talk about how to create real motivation or real willingness that lasts longer than, our Monday morning mood after we've kind of had sort of a crazy weekend or something like that. And, you wake up or Sunday night, you're like, okay, tomorrow morning, Monday morning, I'm starting it. I'm on plan. I'm doing the exercise routine, all that stuff. And then that mood eventually passes as well. So we're going to talk about how do you create long-lasting willingness beyond the Monday morning mood. And then we're going to talk about, which we talk a lot about already in this podcast, but our self-talk, right? How we are talking to ourselves in our head all day long, all the time. Those real quiet, sometimes loud words we're saying to ourselves daily that really ends up shaping our energy, our capacity for the day, our health, and our results. So I want you to really come into this with an open mind, really ready to rethink what it means to get stronger, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally as well. Let's start with identity because this is really the invisible driver behind every choice we are making, every decision we are making in life, whether we're conscious of that decision or that choice or unconscious of it. Here's the really hard truth. You are always going to behave in ways that match who you believe you are. So if deep down you believe, I've never been athletic. I'm bad at sticking with things. I'm too old to start now. Even if you really want to get healthier or stronger, you're going to subconsciously really sabotage yourself because you're trying to behave outside your self image. We are always going to behave in a way that aligns with our inner identity, our inner self image. And there's a lot more to this, and I go into it in different episodes, but it's really important just to understand we as humans gravitate to familiarity. So if I have a belief about myself, I am very unconsciously going to behave in ways that align with that belief about myself because that is familiar. And we as humans actually fall into that familiarity because it takes less energy of the brain and the body to go outside that familiarity. So even though I may want to change, I really, really want to change these things about myself, if I hold that deep core belief about who I am, I'm probably too old to start. And, I've never been able to do it in the past. I don't have enough willpower. If I'm holding a core identity belief like that, even though consciously I may want to change, it's going to be really difficult to do so because my brain and body is always going to be wanting to be back in that familiarity pattern that aligns with that core belief because it takes less energy to do so. So that's just kind of a backdrop to what's going on a psychological level in order to keep us kind of stuck in those patterns, even when we want to change. So, here's just a quick example. Someone who tells herself, I'm just not a morning person. Even if she wants to exercise in the mornings, she's going to hit snooze every time because that identity is stronger than her goal. So here's the really good news. Just a quick interruption to tell you about a supporter of the podcast. This is 5 Strands at Home Testing Kits for Food Intolerances. They are home testing kits and they're a very affordable option for adults and children, as well as pets, to uncover common food and environmental intolerances. This is different than allergy testing. 5 Strands tests for food intolerances, not allergies. These food and intolerance home testing kits test for intolerance to foods and also environmental items. You can buy kits individually or you can purchase the health and wellness package to receive all the standard testing kits for adults and children. The testing results are going to provide you with an elimination guideline to remove foods that may be causing unwanted symptoms like headaches, digestive issues, bloating. If you're intolerant to certain foods or ingredients, this can cause inflammation in the body. And 5 Strands has helped many people figure out exactly what foods to eliminate for a temporary way of eating. So you're not just guessing what foods are making you feel terrible. And remember, this nutritional approach is meant to be temporary, not forever. You can use 5 Strands to know how to start to begin a nutritional approach to reduce symptoms you may be having that might be caused by intolerances and to foods. And then once you start feeling better, you can start to add in the offending foods slowly back into your way of eating. So go to 5strands.com. That's the number 5 strands, because it's 5 strands of hair, 5strands.com with the number 5 in the front, and enter Heather Heynen, my name, all one word, HeatherHeynen, as your discount code at checkout. Again, that is 5strands.com, and your discount code is my name, Heather Heynen, all one word. Identity is absolutely flexible. It can change. We can change it. The thing is, you don't change identity by sitting around and thinking about your identity. We really change it by behaving in a different way. Now, here's the thing. Yes, there are cognitive strategies you can do to help to shift your identity. It's really important to be aware and maybe do some journaling or work with someone to figure out what are my core beliefs? What am I holding there? You do want to become aware of those things so you know what you're working with. And then you can do some cognitive restructuring to start to shift that. But bottom line is you're going to need some proof that that identity is shifting or that it's flexible and it is changing. And that proof comes from our behaviors. So now we need to really get into how do we behave differently so that we can show ourselves that we are starting to change so our identity can start to shift. So if you start walking for 5 minutes every morning, even if you don't feel like a fit person yet, after a few weeks, your brain starts to shift. Wait, I walk every morning. Maybe I am active. So teeny tiny actions create tiny proofs. It builds trust with ourselves. Remember, we have a relationship with ourselves. So we want to build trust with ourselves. So we need doable daily goals. They have to be doable. We need these tiny actions to create these tiny proofs. And then these proofs really rebuild our identity. So, okay, how are we going to shift? Just, I like step by step, very practical things. How are we going to shift our identity? So, number one, you need to name the identity you want. I'm someone who respects and cares for my body. I'm someone who is healthy and nourishes their body and lives in freedom from with food, freedom, from thoughts about my body, things like that. Number two, you do have to start acting as if you are that identity, but it's doable. It's in very small ways. So even on low motivation days, I get my clients to do something teeny tiny that can align with that identity they are going for. So this oftentimes comes down to something like, on low motivation days, what can you do? I mean, you work with the client to figure out what they believe they can do, but often this comes to like, I'm going to at least get my water in, even on low motive. And this is for me too. I get them a lot as well. Low motivation days, I can at least get my water in for that day. And then, that continues to build consistency for you, that relationship with yourself, trust with yourself. And then number three, this is a really big part that people miss a lot. It's really noticing and celebrating every small win. Our brains are programmed to notice all the negative, right? So you're automatically and easily always going to go to the things you're not doing right. I didn't do this and I said I would automatically. So this actually takes some work to really notice and then celebrate every small win. There's actually a biochemical neurotransmitter response that happens when we do this. And that has to do with some dopamine. And then that helps us continue to build more willingness to keep going and that motivation and getting that momentum going. But you got to notice and celebrate those small wins, because every action, even if you think it's small, it's evidence to yourself that you're becoming that person. And that helps to really solidify this new belief in your new identity. Okay, let's move into motivation. Again, a word I don't like, but you know what I'm talking about when I say it. I like the word willingness, but let's talk about it, because for many of us, this motivation, this willingness, honestly feels a little tougher to come by around after that age 40. And that has a lot of different reasons. Many of us, when we're hitting sort of that midlife, we've got a lot going on in our days. So there's a lot less capacity, a lot less energy on a daily basis. And so energy shifts, life demands shift. And if we're honest, kind of that whole rah, the hype around different fads of dieting or like how to get health, it just kind of fades really fast. So here's what's the truth. Here's what's real. Motivation is a result. It is not a requirement to make changes. It comes after making changes. So most people think when I feel motivated, then I'm going to act, then I'm going to behave, and the truth is when we act, when we behave, we build motivation. So let's say you're feeling really tired and thinking there is no way I can work out. Now, if you're really, really tired, it's like you might need to take a rest day. But that feeling when you're just like, I just don't want to do it. I'm kind of feeling tired. I don't want to work out. But if instead you start the practice of, I'm just going to do 5 minutes, I can do 5 minutes, maybe it's some stretching, some mobility work, maybe it's a 5 minute walk, and then you do it. Well, first of all, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to do a little bit more. But even if you don't, even if you just do the 5 minutes, you've built that little piece of trust or proof with yourself that you can stay consistent. And that will actually build the motivation for the next day. It creates momentum. So the action, the behavior creates the energy, creates the motivation. Because by the way, motivation really is energy. So let's talk about real practical things for strategies for real motivation. You really have to lower the bar. So instead of committing to a full 45-minute workout, you want to do something like maybe it's just committing to putting your sneakers on, right? Maybe it's committing to just sleeping in your workout clothes. So I used to do this a lot when I was having just some super low energy seasons in my life. So sleeping in your workout clothes. So when you wake up, it's already on. Let me tell you that trick. It makes it so much easier to get that 10-minute walk in or whatever it is you're committing to. Often then momentum carries you the rest of the way, right? Second thing, tie your actions or your behaviors to your identity, not to outcomes. So instead of thinking, I have to lose 20 pounds, you want to switch your goal setting to focusing on, I'm the kind of person who moves my body daily. I'm the kind of person who nourishes their body with really nourishing foods, right? So tie your actions to your identity, the identity you want, not to the outcomes. And then number three, this is a big one that also often people skip. It's really to create some visual progress. This can be so helpful in keeping the motivation and the momentum going. So track check marks on a calendar, use Post-it notes, anything where you can record and see your consistency grow over time. This really fuels energy and motivation through visible wins. I had a client who really hated strength training, and we were kind of into that next phase of coaching where that's really where she did want to get there. And I really wanted her to go there because there's so much benefit in that strength training, especially, in middle age. And, she just kept saying, I'm not a gym person. I've just never been a gym person. I'm not a gym person. So I really challenged her to try this very small thing. And I just asked her to drive to the gym and to walk in every day for 1 minute. That was literally the goal. And she agreed to do this, kind of held her accountable to that. At the beginning, she wouldn't walk in, even though that was the goal. She would drive, parking lot, take a screenshot, send it to me. So she made it to the parking lot, but at about day 3, she did then go inside, and she did only stay for a minute, right? She kind of sat on the bench watching and then left. But after about a week, she started to get a little more comfortable being in there. She had talked to some of the people who had worked there. She's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. She lined up a trainer to help her out for a couple weeks to kind of show her how to do things. So it was this slow, gradual process. But now, 2 years later, she's been in there being consistent. She's lifting weights. She's hitting PRs. She loves it, that kind of thing. So I just want you to see motivation did not start that journey. It was only those teeny tiny actions and proofs along the way that got it going. Okay, so let's talk about the third thing. This is our self-talk. And the way we speak to ourselves daily is truly the hidden engine. It is the hidden energy behind your strength and your resilience. Most of us are walking around with really old tapes playing in our head. By the way, that just dated me. I think most of you listening know what I'm talking about. Old tapes that are playing in our head, right? Remember the old cassette tapes? But phrases like, I'm just not disciplined. I'm too old to get into shape now. I always mess up eventually. So even if we're not saying these things out loud, they really guide our feelings. And remember, our feelings drive behavior. So if after eating a cookie, you think, I have no willpower, I just always blow it, what happens next? Most of us are going to eat more cookies because we already told ourselves that we failed. So we want to work on more helpful self-talk. One cookie doesn't define me. I'm learning balance. Every moment, every meal is a fresh start. Strong women have strong comebacks, things like that. And there's 3 ways to break this down again into really practical steps to work to create powerful self-talk. So number 1, you have to catch it. So you have to start to be more and more aware. Sometimes journaling can help with this to get you really aware of what your self-talk is like. Working with therapist or coach, because they're observing this, they can help you figure out what your inner critic is saying often. So you have to catch it, you have to notice it, and then you have to question it. You have to ask, is this true? Even if you think it might be true, you're like, yeah, that's true, I can't do the thing. Then you can ask, is it helpful? No, it's not helpful. Okay, we're looking for helpful self-statements, self-talk. Another thing you can do is say, would I say it to myself? Would I say this in this way to my best friend? Okay, if it's a no, then we know we have to shift it. And then number 3, you have to shift it or reframe it. So you have to replace it with something you already have memorized or worked through, with something kinder or more empowering. And journaling can help with this too, because you need to beforehand, when you're doing this work, come up with a couple of things that feel not toxically positive, not like, oh, I'm amazing and I can do it. No, that's not typically how most of us feel about ourselves. We're not using positive affirmations. Those do not work for this kind of stuff. We're looking for maybe some neutral self statements, but things that you memorize, so that when you're doing this cognitive work, when it comes time to reframe a negative self statement by the inner critic, you have something to throw in there immediately. Often the one I use with a lot of my clients, I use myself forever, were things like, and I'm working on this, Okay, I noticed the inner critic saying this to me. That is not helpful. I would not talk to my best friend this way. So what I am going to say here is, yeah, I'm working on this thing. I'm moving through it. Something along those lines. Example would be a guy I coached would often say, I'm just an old guy trying to hang on. And we really work to shift that identity statement to I'm a guy who's gaining strength and wisdom every year. I'm a guy who's gaining strength and wisdom every year. And now this is years later, but he's out there hiking and biking more than he did when he was 40. So these are the powerful changes that can come by working on shifting your identity. Your brain believes what you tell it. So you really want to look at what are you telling your brain over and over again. Aging strong, powerful, and with purpose is not about fighting time. It's not about struggling against our as we age. It's not about struggling with it. It's about aligning our mind and our actions with the version of us who still has so much ahead of us. Identity is the root. Action builds the motivation or the willingness, which turns into consistency. And our self-talk waters the whole thing. You do not have to be a superhero, right? You just have to show up with the belief that you are worth taking care of and that your best, strongest years might just be ahead of you. So no matter where you're at right now, you can start today by changing one small thought, taking one small action, and telling yourself one kinder, more helpful truth about yourself. All right, friends, that's it for today's episode. If this message resonated with you, if you're feeling fired up to build a stronger, kinder mindset, create a whole new, stronger body, mind, soul, it would mean a lot to me if you would just share this episode with a friend or even leave a quick review. That really helps the algorithms of the podcast to get shared to more listeners, which helps me in turn continue to keep having an episode weekly. And if you're ready for some tools to help you practice this in daily life, stay tuned, follow the show. I've really got some great resources coming up, episodes coming up to really help us all get into this mindset of aging strong, aging with power and purpose. So until next time, keep believing in yourself, keep taking small steps, and remember, you're not getting just older. Older is fine too, but we are getting stronger and stronger. Thanks for listening. We will talk soon. The information in this podcast is intended to provide a broad understanding and knowledge of healthcare topics. This information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered complete and should not be used in place of advice from your physician or healthcare provider. We recommend you consult your physician or healthcare professional before beginning or altering your personal exercise, diet, or supplementation program. Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and there you will find links to my online courses, how I work with clients one-on-one, as well as online with my coaching and counseling services that I offer.